It started with a sharp buzz from my phone. I was watching TV in bed, eating cold leftovers, and ignoring the storm outside. Rain lashed against my 7th-floor apartment window, but I barely noticed. I was halfway through a rewatch of some dumb sitcom, volume just loud enough to drown out the thunder. Then the emergency alert hit. That harsh, piercing tone hijacked everything. TV cut to static. Phone vibrated off the nightstand. I grabbed it. Emergency alert. Local warning. Unidentified event in progress. Shelter in place. Do not use elevators. Do not open your door for anyone you didn't see enter. That was it. No more information. I stared at the screen, waiting for more. But the alert just stayed there, pulsing red. Then, without warning, all the power cut out. Everything went dark. The kind of dark where your eyes don't adjust. Just this thick blackness swallowing the room whole. I sat up, waited. Nothing came back on. Then I heard the hallway lights pop, one by one like distant firecrackers down the hall. From my door, I could see it. The faint glow under the crack. And then, movement. Something walked by. Too quiet for a person. No footsteps. Just this soft, dragging noise. And then the sound of something wet hitting the tile. Slap, drag, slap, drag. I didn't breathe. A shadow crossed the light at the bottom of the door. Stopped. Paused. Then moved on. I didn't move for 10 minutes. Eventually I crept to the door. Pressed my ear against it. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. But it wasn't another alert. It was a message. From an unknown number. Don't open it. Not yet. I felt the blood leave my face. How did they know? Then the screaming started. From 2 floors down. A woman, shrieking, begging for help. Then, silence. My phone buzzed again. Same number. That's not her. Stay inside. I looked through a peephole. The hallway was empty. Except it wasn't. The ceiling light at the far end was strobing faintly, and beneath it stood a shape. Tall. Bent backward at the spine. Limbs too long. Face too low. It twitched with every flash of light. Closer. Closer. Until the light popped, and it was gone. I backed away from the door, hands shaking. Phone buzzed again. Rule 1, do not open the door, even if they sound familiar. Rule 2, if the lights go red, hide. Don't run. Rule 3, if you see yourself in the hallway, close your eyes and count to 7. Rule 4, there's no 5th floor tonight. Don't try to take the stairs. Rule 5, if the phone rings, don't answer it. I dropped the phone. The hallway light outside my door flicked on and turned red. I dove into my closet and slammed the door shut. Curled up behind coats, trying to stay still. The sound came back. That slap. Drag. Slap. Drag. But now it was right outside my apartment. Then it stopped, and something scraped across the door. Not knocking, just dragging long, sharp nails over the wood. Then, open up. It's me. It sounded like my neighbor Sherry, but it wasn't. I'd seen Sherry leave earlier that day. Then the voice changed, slightly deeper. Open up. It's you. I covered my ears. The apartment was dead silent again. I waited. Maybe 10 minutes. Then I crept out and grabbed my phone. New message. You have 60 seconds. Get to apartment 703. It's safe. I looked at the number. Still unknown. But the hallway light was normal again. I cracked open the door. No sound. No shapes. Just that long, dim hallway stretching out like a maze. I ran. Apartment 703 was 3 doors down. I knocked. No answer. I tried the knob. Unlocked. Inside was pitch black, but it smelled like candles. And something sweet. I stepped in. The door slammed behind me. Lock clicked. And I wasn't alone. The room was full of mirrors. Dozens. Tall ones. Cracked ones. some draped with cloth. And in every one, I saw myself. Only not quite. One was smiling, one was waving, one had no eyes. Then the lights cut again. In the dark, I heard my own voice whisper, "You shouldn't have come." And then something grabbed my arm, not hard, just cold and wrong. I screamed. When I woke up, I was back in my own apartment. Lights on, TV humming, phone fully charged, no messages, no alerts. Everything looked normal until I checked the mirror in the hallway, because my reflection still hasn't blinked. They say it was just a power outage that night, that no such emergency alert ever went out. But I still have the message screen saved on my phone. No timestamp, no contact name, just those 5 rules. And I never saw Sherry again. If you ever get an alert you weren't supposed to see, don't ignore it. And whatever you do, don't open the door. I was 5 minutes from clocking out. 3rd shift in a row, exhausted, covered in dried sanitizer, and nursing the kind of headache that lives behind your eyes. The fluorescent lights of the ICU hummed too loud. My badge was already unclipped, and I was halfway through signing my end-of-shift notes when the alarm hit. But it wasn't any alarm I recognized. Not code blue, not code red. This one was colder, lower. A vibrating metallic groan that started in the walls and bled through the floor. The intercom clicked on. Then something spoke, but not in English. It wasn't even a voice, just a long broken static pattern that sounded like something gasping through static. And then it stopped, and the hospital went silent. At first I thought it was a drill. Then Nurse Tara collapsed at her station. No sound, no warning. Just face first, like her strings were cut. Then I looked around. Everyone was down. Doctors, nurses, visitors in the waiting area. No screams, no convulsions. Just stillness. I was the only one standing. My first instinct was to call for help, but my phone screen was black. Not dead, just off, like it had been erased. The hospital lights dimmed to an unnatural hue, something between red and green, like mold lit from behind. The intercom crackled again. Unit 0, access granted, containment breach, host active. I didn't wait for more. I sprinted out of ICU and down the hall. But something had changed. The floor didn't feel like tile anymore. It had give, like rubber or skin. Each step made a soft, wet thump. And the paintings on the walls, stock art of flowers and lighthouses, had turned gray, almost like they'd melted. One picture pulsed when I passed it. I didn't look back. As I turned the corner toward the stairwell, I heard someone crying. At first I was relieved, but the sound was wrong. It looped. Same breath, same hitch, same muffled sob, over and over. When I reached the source, I found one of the surgeons, Dr. Ishmael, kneeling in the middle of the hallway. His face was turned toward the wall, crying, then laughing, then both at once. "Doc, are you okay?" He turned, and I realized it wasn't him anymore. His face was blank, no eyes, just smooth gray skin where they used to be. But his mouth was wide open, laughing silently. And inside, teeth, rows of them, all the way down. I ran. The stairwell was coated in a black substance. Smelled like copper and rot. I took the stairs 2 at a time, sprinting downward. But every door I tried was locked, and the floors were wrong. Labeled, -3, -4, -5, each lower than the last. And then, Neuro, a door without a handle. It opened on its own. I stepped inside. I was back in the ICU. Same hallway, same nurse's station. But now everything was mirrored. backwards. And the windows didn't show the city anymore, just endless static. I turned, and the walls behind me were gone. Just a black hallway stretching infinitely in both directions. And from the end of the hall, something moved. Tall, thin, back bent like a question mark. It whispered in 1,000 voices at once. "You were not cleared for release." I bolted into the nearest patient room. It was empty, except for one gurney and a flickering heart monitor. On the screen were words, not vitals. "Stay inside the room until it passes." I hid under the gurney, held my breath. The whispering grew louder. Feet scraped past the doorway, stopped, sniffed the air, and then silence. I waited a full 10 minutes before crawling out. When I looked into the hallway, it was normal again. Mostly, except everyone on the floor was still collapsed. I found a phone still working at the front desk. But when I called 911, a voice answered, "You are not alone. Not anymore." Click. I made it to the ambulance bay and sprinted outside. The parking lot was filled with abandoned cars, still idling. Every driver inside was slumped over the wheel, mouths open, eyes wide, as if they'd seen something right before the lights went out. I ran 6 blocks before someone found me, collapsing outside a Walgreens, blood on my shoes and babbling about code gray. The hospital's official statement? Gas leak, mass unconsciousness, no fatalities. They scrubbed the footage, replaced the staff, said I imagined most of it. But the hallway I saw, the mirrored ICU, that was real. I know it was. Because some nights when the static creeps onto my TV, I can still hear that voice. Containment breached. You brought something out. And sometimes I wake up in my apartment, back in that mirrored hallway, just for a second, long enough to hear the whispers, long enough to know it's not over. Not yet. It was a quiet Sunday night. One of those end-of-weekend evenings where time feels heavy and slow. I had just finished eating leftover takeout and was lounging on the couch, the TV humming low in the background. Outside, it was raining lightly, just enough to tap against the windows like soft fingernails. I remember checking the time, 9:37 p.m., the kind of peaceful night you don't think twice about, until the emergency alert kicked in. The screen turned black. A harsh, blaring tone filled the room. The kind that slices through your ears like a blade. Then a voice, flat, mechanical. "This is not a test." I sat up immediately. The screen flickered to an all too familiar gray message block. But the wording was, Fail. A trans-dimensional breach has been detected. Do not attempt to make contact with outside entities. Avoid windows and reflections. Then it listed something I'd never seen on any emergency broadcast before. Do not acknowledge the third sound. If you see yourself, do not engage. Shelter in place, lock all doors, wait for further instructions. And then silence. The screen stayed gray for a full minute, and then the TV shut off by itself. At first, I thought it was a prank. Some local station being edgy, maybe a hack. But then I got a notification on my phone, same message. Then my lights flickered, and that's when I noticed the shadows weren't right. The overhead light in my living room cast a shadow of me sitting, but the shape was slightly off. Head tilted wrong, hands longer. I blinked and it snapped back to normal, but I knew what I saw, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore. I moved away from the windows. The rain had stopped, but everything outside was too still, like the world was on pause. No wind, no movement, and the air smelled metallic. Then I heard it. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate, from my front door. I didn't move. Then a voice. "Hey, it's me. You home?" It sounded like my friend Jared, but I hadn't spoken to Jared in months, and he definitely wasn't supposed to be here. "Come on, man. Let me in." I checked the peephole, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It was Jared, but his mouth was moving in reverse, like a tape being rewound. His eyes were gray. Not blind gray, just hollow. And behind him farther down the street were more figures, standing still. All of them facing my house. I backed away and locked the deadbolt. Turned off every light. My phone buzzed again. A new message. "Do not open the door for the voice that sounds familiar." That's all it said. Nothing else. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I had. Then I heard it again. 3 knocks. But this time, from the back door. And then again, from the basement. And then again, from inside the house. I ran to the hallway and stopped cold. There, at the end, just past the mirror. I saw myself, or something that looked like me. But his face wasn't moving. He was grinning, unblinking. And behind his shoulder something pulsed. A shifting, oily blackness like ink suspended in air. It whispered in a language I didn't understand. I blinked, and it was gone. But the hallway mirror was cracked down the center. The emergency broadcast kicked back in. The voice this time sounded strained, as if it was being read under duress. "If you are hearing this broadcast, do not leave your home. Do not follow the lights. Do not respond to anything calling you by name." I heard a scraping at my bedroom door. Looked up. There was a note slipped underneath, in my handwriting. "You're already inside. Let yourself out." I snapped. Ran to the breaker box and cut all power. Darkness swallowed the house. And in the pitch black, I heard it again. The third sound. It wasn't a knock this time. It was breathing, right behind me. Slow, wet, wrong. I turned and swung the knife. But nothing was there. Just the sound of water dripping from the ceiling. And the faint smell of rotting flowers. I spent the rest of the night in the bathtub, curtain drawn, knife in hand. The whispers never stopped. The shadows moved like they were alive. And when the sun finally rose, everything was back to normal. The power returned. My phone had no emergency messages. The news made no mention of anything strange. But the mirror still cracked. And sometimes, just for a second, I still see that grin behind my shoulder. They say the broadcast wasn't real, that no such alert was ever issued. But I know what I saw, what I heard, what I still see in reflections I don't look at long enough. And I think something came through that night. Something that wears our faces and waits for the next knock.